Okay, let's watch this. I'm kind of interested.
My
I've
strength lies
never heard him speak about pretty much anything. I have no preconceived notion. I don't care about being nice or bad to him. I don't care. So let's watch this.
not in my name,
Yeah,
but in the backing of 1.4 billion Indians and thousands of years of timeless culture and heritage.
yeah, makes
So
sense.
wherever I go, I carry with me the essence of thousands of years of Vedic tradition, the timeless teachings of Swami Vivekananda, and the blessings, dreams, and aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians.
Yeah,
When I shake hands with a world leader, it's not Modi, but 1.4 billion Indians doing so.
yeah. The big population
So
of
this
India. The big population of India definitely plays a strong part in India's strength as a nation.
isn't my strength at all. It is rather the strength of India.
Obviously.
Whenever we speak
I
of
mean, if it was his strength, he would be a dictator.
peace, the world listens to us.
Yeah.
Because India
Kashmir
is the
is
land
a
of Gautam Buddha
Kashmir is an
and
example of that.
Mahatma Gandhi. And Indians aren't hardwired to espouse strife and conflict. We espouse harmony instead. We seek neither to wage war against nature nor to foster strife among nations.
Nature? Have you seen the air quality in the air quality is so bad in India they had to create a new air quality index that is more gentle with them. That is like kind of more shy to tell them that the air quality is so bad.
We stand for
And you live in harmony with nature?
against nature nor to foster
India is an
strife among
eco monster.
nations. We stand for peace. And
Yeah.
wherever we can act as peacemakers,
Oh
we
yeah.
have gladly embraced that responsibility.
Awesome.
My early life was spent in extreme poverty, but we never really felt the burden of poverty. You see, someone who is used to wearing fine shoes will feel their absence when they don't have them. But for us, we had never worn shoes in our lives. So, how would we even know that wearing shoes was a big deal?
Yeah.
We weren't in a position to compare. That's just how we lived.
Oh
When I
my
became
god.
prime minister,
When
I
does this
specially
podcast
invited
start?
Pakistan to my
Prime Minister
Yeah.
and everywhere else. The
Interesting.
following is a conversation with. So I should also say I'm fasting right now. It's been almost 2 days, 45 hours.
Okay.
So just water, no food. In honor of this conversation, just to get in the right mindset, get into the spiritual level. I've read that you often
As
fast for
if
many days.
I feel
Can you?
like a lot of Westerns have this conception and this idea of Indians being all like meditation and yoga masters, that somehow Indians are like these kind of spiritual beings. That's not the case, bro.
You explain why you
That's
fast
so stupid.
and where does your mind go when you fast?
First of all, I'm truly pleasantly surprised and honored that you're fasting.
He's so slow.
All the more because it feels like
Bro, go quicker.
you're fasting as a tribute of respect for me.
Yeah.
So I express my deepest gratitude to you for doing this.
Oh, let's go. Let's
In
go.
India, our religious traditions
Yeah.
are actually a way of life.
Makes sense.
Our Supreme Court once gave a brilliant interpretation of Hinduism. They have stated that Hinduism is not about rituals or methods of worship, but rather it's a way of living, a philosophy that guides life itself.
Oh, awesome.
And in our scriptures, there is deep discussion on elevating the body, mind, intellect, soul, and humanity. They outline various paths, traditions, and systems to achieve this.
Bro, is this a normal way to start a conversation? Like, hi, hi, did you know that Hinduism is a way of living? And like, it's quite clear that Greater India is something that, the Hindu, he wasn't even prompted about the religion at all.
And fasting is
crazy.
one of them.
Yeah.
But fasting alone isn't everything.
Finally, we got to fasting. Like, can you tell me something about fasting? Yeah, sure. Let me just talk about religion first.
In India, whether you see it culturally or philosophically, sometimes I see that fasting is a way to cultivate discipline. If I put it in simple terms or explain it to the viewers who are unfamiliar
I don't know how
with
critical
India,
I should be with
it is a powerful tool
criticizing Indian
to
people
bring both the inner and outer self
on the internet. It generally
into
doesn't bring
balance.
good.
It shapes life in profound ways.
Yeah.
When you fast, you may have noticed, as you said, you've been fasting on water for 2 days. Every single one of your senses, especially smell, touch, and taste, becomes highly sensitive. You may even notice the subtle aroma of water itself,
Okay,
something you
so,
probably never noticed before when
I'm looking at the timeline and they're talking about fasting for 10 minutes.
my past lifestyle was such that I naturally developed this habit over time.
Yeah.
Then, in March or April, another Navratri occurs, called Chaitra Navratri. This year, it will likely begin around March 31st.
Okay.
During this 9-day fast, I eat only one specific fruit once a day.
What fruit is that?
So for those 9 days, if let's say I choose
Oh, you
papaya,
choose it first. Okay.
then for all 9 days, I won't touch anything else, just papaya.
So it's not a fast.
That too, I eat only once a day. That's how I follow my 9-day fasting routine.
Okay, well.
So there
yeah.
are numerous fasts I keep throughout the year. And this has become a deeply ingrained tradition in my life.
Yeah,
Perhaps I
fasting
can say that I've been
is
following
awesome.
these practices for 50 to 55 years.
Has there been times when you met with a world leader and completely fasted? And maybe what do they think about that? What do they think about your ability to do that kind of thing? And you're right, I should mention that
I mean, it's not some kind of superpower. Humanity has lived like that for so long. Right?
from even my 2 days, my ability to be present, my ability to sense everything, sharply focus on this experience is elevated. But yes, is there stories with a world leader
Oh, wow.
that maybe jump to mind when you were fasted?
Well, most of the time, I don't even let people know about it. It's my personal matter.
Yeah,
So I
you're
never
fucking-
publicized it.
You're a fucking prime minister.
But people gradually started finding out. It became known only after I became chief minister and prime minister. Otherwise, it was purely personal.
Okay, makes sense. Makes
But
a
now
lot
that
of
it's out in
sense.
the open, I don't mind sharing. If someone asks, I tell them so it might be useful to them. Because it's not my personal property. It's my experience. And if that can help someone, why not share it? After all, my life has always been devoted to the well-being of others. For example, after I became prime minister, I had a bilateral meeting at the White House with President Obama.
Okay.
And he had also arranged a formal dinner. Then, as discussions between the two governments progressed, someone said, "Please join us for dinner." To which another replied, "But the prime minister doesn't eat." This left them a bit concerned. How do you host the leader of such a major nation at the White House without serving food? When we sat down, they brought me a glass of hot water.
It's crazy to think this
I
is
turned
an
to
AI
President
voice.
Obama and jokingly said, "Look, my dinner has arrived," as I placed the glass in front of me. Later, when I visited again, he still remembered. He smiled and said, "Last time you were fasting. This time we're having lunch. Since you're not fasting, you'll have to eat twice as much."
Let's go to the beginning.
Obama's
You
got
rose from
jokes.
humble beginnings to lead the world's largest democracy. So I think there's a lot of people for whom this is
Largest
truly
democracy.
inspiring.
Yeah, that sounds like
Your family was of very modest means,
quote
and
unquote
you grew up
democracy.
in a one-room house
Kind of thing.
with a mud floor, your whole family living there. Tell me about your childhood. How did those...
I'm not interested in the childhood. We have advice to young people. Let's see what he has to say.
There's a lot of young people listening to this that are truly inspired by your story. From those humble beginnings to the leader of the biggest democracy in the world. What can you tell to those young folks who are struggling, who are lost in the world, who are trying to find...
I mean, now that I think about this, it's actually very democratic. The fact that you can be a extremely poor person and eventually rise to become the leader of a democracy so big. It actually is kind of democratic. Makes sense. You can't control
Find their way.
so much.
What
of it.
advice could you give them?
I guess it's some little parts that get mainly oppressed and controlled, but since it's such a vast territory, there always is going to be something new, you know.
I
happening
want to
somewhere.
tell all the young people the following.
Yeah,
No matter
there's always a light
how
at the
dark
end
the
of
night may
tunnel.
seem, it is still just night, and morning is bound to come.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
That's why we need patience and self-confidence.
We're living through a renaissance.
Yes, the challenges
right
are real,
now.
but I am not defined by my
Renaissance.
circumstances. I am here for a purpose, sent by a higher power, and I am not alone.
Yeah.
The one who sent me is always with me. This unwavering faith should always remain within us. Difficulties are a test of endurance. They are not meant to defeat me,
It's crazy how
Hardships
unrelated
exist
the
to make me
speech is
stronger.
to
helping me
like,
grow and improve,
the face.
not to leave me feeling hopeless or discouraged.
He spoke Hindi.
Personally,
Oh wow.
I see every crisis, every challenge as an opportunity.
I
So
thought
to all
he'd
young people, I
speak in
say,
English.
have patience. There are no shortcuts in life. At our railway stations, there hangs a sign for those who habitually cross the tracks instead of using the bridge. It reads, shortcut will cut you short. I would tell young people the same. Shortcut will cut you short.
Yeah, I'm not interested in this advice. Let's see, the other chapters are Journey in the Himalayas, which is pretty dope. Becoming a monk, RSS and Hindi nationalism. Let's see explaining India. This seems like a pretty interesting.
But they've also helped push the
Part.
idea of India. What is the idea that unifies India? What is India as a nation?
Yeah.
What is the foundational idea that unites
Hinduism,
all of these disparate
I think.
worlds and communities and cultures? What would it be?
Look, India is a cultural identity. It is a civilization that dates back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Consider the vastness of India. Over
really big.
100 languages,
Yeah.
thousands of dialects.
Yeah.
India is so diverse that we have a saying that every 20 miles the language changes. Customs change, cuisine changes, even clothing styles shift from region to region, from the south to the north. You will see immense diversity across the country. But if you dig a little deeper, you will find a common thread. For example, the stories of Lord Ram can be heard everywhere in India. His name echoes in every corner of the country. But if you look closely, from Tamil Nadu to Jammu and Kashmir, you will always find people whose names include Ram in some form.
Yeah.
In Gujarat, he might be called Ram Bhai. In Tamil Nadu, Ramachandra. And in Maharashtra, Ram Bhau. This unique cultural bond is what unites India as one civilization.
Yeah.
Take something as simple as bathing in water. We have a ritual
That's the history.
where all the rivers of India are remembered. They chant, I am bathing with the waters of all these rivers. Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu, Kaveri. It's a sentiment that unites a nation. And we have a long tradition of making such resolutions at the beginning of important events and
This
rituals.
map looks kind of interesting.
And the resolution itself can present a historical record.
Yeah.
And in so doing, serve as a way of collecting and preserving historical data. It has been an incredibly unique system, guided meticulously by our scriptures. When someone makes a resolution, performs a puja, or even during weddings,
This is such a boring podcast. They're talking about nothing interesting. Maybe, I mean, they're talking about peace in Ukraine. Let's see if this is more interesting. Actually, right, the second hour gets more interesting. So let's watch that now. This introduction, first hour was so fucking boring. But yeah, let's watch Peace in Ukraine.
You have spoken about, you have the experience, you have the skill, you have the geopolitical leverage to be the biggest peacemaker in the world today on the world stage, and there's several
That's not
wars
true.
going on. Can you maybe explain
That's not true. That's. He said.
experience, you have the skill, you have the geopolitical leverage
What
to be
geopolitical
the
leverage
biggest.
does India have over Ukraine and Russia? Or Israel and Palestine? What kind of leverage does India have? India has no business in those wars.
Peacemaker in the world today on the world stage, and there's several wars going on.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain how you approach the process of making peace, helping make peace between two warring nations? For example, Russia and Ukraine.
Well, I represent the country. That is the land of Lord Buddha. I
Yeah.
represent the country that is the land of Mahatma Gandhi. These are the great souls whose teachings, words, actions, and behavior are entirely dedicated to peace. And that is why, culturally and historically, our background is so strong that whenever we speak of peace, the world listens to us.
Okay.
Because India is the land of Gautam Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi, and Indians aren't hardwired to espouse strife and conflict. We espouse harmony instead. We seek neither to wage war against nature nor to foster strife among nations. We stand for peace, and wherever we can act as peacemakers, we have gladly embraced that responsibility. Returning to your example, I have a close relationship with Russia and Ukraine alike.
I don't even think
I
he
can
knows
sit
the
with President
presidents.
Putin and say that this is not the time for war.
I don't think he knows what.
And I can
what
also tell
Ukraine's
President
president
Zelensky in a
is.
friendly way
Oh, he knows.
that, brother, regardless of how
Wow.
many people stand with you in the world,
Yeah.
there will never be a resolution on the battlefield.
Yeah.
The resolution will only come when both Ukraine and Russia come to the negotiating table. Ukraine may hold countless discussions with their allies, but it will bear no fruit. Discussions must include both parties instead. Initially, it was challenging to find peace, but now the current situation presents an opportunity for meaningful and productive talks between Ukraine and Russia.
I think he's not
There
the
has
most
been a lot of
qualified.
suffering. Even the global south has suffered. The world has been grappling with a food, fuel, and fertilizer crisis. So, the global community should unite in the pursuit of peace.
Sure.
As for me, I have always maintained that I stand with peace. I am not neutral. I have a stance, and that is peace. And peace is what I strive for.
That's awesome. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. If it actually was this way, that would be dope. But yeah, now they're talking about India,
Two
Pakistan.
nuclear powers with strong ideological differences. You are a great peacemaker. Looking
Yeah.
out
Why don't you
into
make
the
peace
future
with Pakistan?
as a visionary, what do you see as the path for friendship, for peace, for good relations between India and Pakistan?
This is interesting.
I would like to
Look at how sad his
delve
face
into
is.
periods of our history the world may be unfamiliar with. Before 1947, during the struggle for independence,
Yeah.
everyone was fighting side by side, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And the nation was eagerly waiting to celebrate the freedom, the joy of independence.
Yeah.
Now, we could have a lengthy discussion on what led to the events that unfolded. But the fact remains that the policymakers of the time agreed to India's partition,
Yeah.
and they agreed to the Muslim side's demand of carving out a separate nation with hearts weighed down by grief and silent tears. Indians embraced this painful reality.
Sure.
However, what unfolded was an immediate, heartbreaking saga of bloodshed. Trains filled with bloodied, wounded people and corpses started arriving from Pakistan. It was a harrowing sight. After getting their own way, we expected them to live and let live. And yet, they chose not to foster a harmonious coexistence. Time and again, they decided to be at odds with India.
So he's blaming
They have waged a
Pakistan.
proxy war against us.
Proxy.
Don't mistake this for ideology.
Okay.
What kind of ideology thrives on bloodshed and the export of terror? And we are not the sole victims of this menace. Wherever terror strikes in the world, the trail somehow leads to Pakistan. Let's take the September 11th attacks, for example.
Oh my God. Anything that's wrong with the world comes from Pakistan. Let's go.
The main mastermind behind it, Osama bin Laden, where did he eventually emerge from? He had taken refuge in Pakistan. The world has recognized that, in a way, terrorism and the terrorist mindset are deeply rooted in Pakistan.
Okay.
Today, it stands as an epicenter of turmoil, not just for India, but for the world. And we have repeatedly asked them what good can come from this path. We have urged them to abandon the path of state sponsored terrorism for good. What do you hope to gain by surrendering your nation to lawless forces? I even personally traveled to Lahore in the pursuit of peace. When I became Prime Minister,
Yeah.
I specially invited Pakistan to my swearing in ceremony so we
Oh,
could
let's
turn
go.
over a new leaf. Yet, every noble attempt at fostering peace was met with hostility and betrayal. We sincerely hope that wisdom prevails upon them and they choose the path of peace. I believe even the people of Pakistan long for peace because even they must be weary of living in
Yeah, the
strife and
people don't
unrest.
care, bro.
They must have grown weary of relentless terror,
The people of
where even
Pakistan,
innocent children are killed and countless lives are destroyed.
I think there are similarities so big between the people of Pakistan and people of India. It's just the leaders that are so morally bankrupt. But yeah, so he blamed every wrongful action of humanity on Pakistan and said that it's the home for terrorism, and wow, he really hates Pakistan.
Is there some
I don't think the people
memorable
care about-
stories from
like-
your past attempts to
Wow.
try to improve relations with Pakistan that could guide the path forward into the future?
Like I mentioned, my first attempt at improving bilateral relations was when I invited my Pakistani counterpart to my swearing in. It was a gesture of goodwill. It was a diplomatic gesture unlike any in decades. The very people who once questioned my approach to foreign policy were taken aback when they learned I had invited all SAARC heads of state
Oh,
and
wow.
our then president, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, beautifully captured that historic gesture in his memoir. This was a testament to how clear and confident India's foreign policy had become. This sent a clear message to the world about India's commitment to peace and harmony.
Sure.
But we didn't get the desired outcome.
Maybe to ask a little bit of a lighter question, who has the better cricket team, India or Pakistan? The two teams have a epic rivalry on the pitch. And more seriously, given the geopolitical
Quite
tensions
clear
that
he's
you
gonna
spoke
say
to,
India.
what role do sports and cricket
That's wrong, bro.
and football play in
Yeah. Sports.
fostering better relations?
Sports are great at controlling masses. He's not gonna say it, but like, I feel like some of the greatest democratic assets that countries have are their sports teams. They
I
mobilitate
think
so many people.
sports have the power to energize the entire world. The spirit of
Yeah,
sports
the same thing happens with
brings
football.
people together across different nations. That's why I would never want to see sports being discredited.
Awesome. Yeah, don't
I
discredit
truly
sports.
believe that sports play a major role in human evolution. They're not just games.
At least in
They
gathering,
connect people
yeah.
on a deeper level.
Connection.
Now,
yeah.
coming to the question of who's better and who's not.
Yeah, it's like every mask falls once you're at the stadium. It's like it's the closest thing to being like in peace and harmony together. Like you're all at the stadium cheering for a team, and it almost like you need to have an adversary. It sort of shows that communities can be built, and it's so much easier to build them around, having a common enemy.
When it comes to techniques in sports,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. Only those who
I could have
specialize in
told
the
that.
technical aspects can judge which techniques are superior and who the best players really are.
Yeah,
But sometimes
you're
the
just
result,
he's just a narrative mover, If you build the right narrative, that's enough. You don't need to know the technical things about sports. You can use sports like the Indian national cricket team to tell stories of greatness of your country, and and a lot of people will be moved by that. It's like the proxy success, the successful proxy is more believable once you have that element of credibility.
Speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Just a few days ago, India and Pakistan played a match. The result reveals which is the better team. That's how we know.
Yeah, I've watched this series called The Greatest Rivalry, India versus Pakistan, that describes so many incredible players, so many incredible games. It's always beautiful to see a great rivalry. You've also spoken about football. Football is very popular in India. So another tough
getting
question:
more
who is the
popular.
greatest football player of all time? We got Messi, Pele, Maradona, Cristiano
It's
Ronaldo,
Messi
Zidane.
for
Who do you
sure.
think is the greatest
But he's gonna say
football player
Ronaldo,
to have ever
maybe.
played?
It's absolutely true that many regions in India have a strong
Ma figa, sto streamando.
football culture. Our women's football team is performing really well. And the
Women's
men's
football team is
football
performing
culture.
really well.
Our women's football team is performing really well.
Is it true? I'm not sure about that.
And the
I mean, I'm pretty sure that I can assemble a team of 11 people. One of them is me, and we would win against that team.
men's team is also making great progress. But if we talk about the past,
Men's team is making a lot of... They never got to the World Cup, bro. Come on. If India qualifies to the World Cup, that means India has made it.
back in the 1980s, one name that always stood out was Maradona. For that generation, he was seen as a true hero.
A true hero
And if you
that
ask
does
today's
coke.
generation, they'll immediately mention Messi.
Yeah.
Now that you've asked, another interesting memory just came to mind. There's a state in India called Madhya Pradesh,
Yeah.
right in the center.
The greatest Ronaldo fan base is there. Probably Messi too. But like these community of Indian Pakistani football supporters is pretty much out of control. Like they're blinded by their football.
There's a district called Shadol, a completely tribal region where a large tribal community resides.
Yeah.
I really enjoy interacting with people from such communities, especially the self-help groups run by tribal women. So I decided to visit them and have a conversation. But when I got there, I noticed something fascinating. Around 80 to 100 young boys, kids, and even some older youth, all dressed in sports uniforms, standing together. Naturally, I walked over to them. So I asked them, "Where are you all from?" And they replied, "We're from Mini Brazil."
Mini
I was
Brazil
surprised and said, "What do you mean by Mini Brazil?"
in India?
They said, "That's what people call our village."
Wow.
Curious, I asked, "Why do they call it Mini Brazil?" They explained, "In our village, football has been played
That's what it
for
looks
4 generations. Nearly 80 national level players have come from here. Our entire village is dedicated to football." They also told me when we host our annual football match, nearly 20 to 25,000 spectators come from nearby villages to watch. I see the growing craze for football in India these days as a
Is it
positive
this?
sign because it not only fuels passion but also
What
builds
is
true
this,
team
bro?
spirit.
Come on.
Yeah, football is one of the great sports that unites not just India, the whole world. And that just shows the power of what sport can do.
Can't find
You recently
anything.
visited the United States and reinvigorated your friendship with Donald Trump. What do you like about Donald Trump as a friend, as a leader?
Wow, they've already
I'd
made...
like to share
This podcast came out like 5 hours ago, and now there are news on the Indian news talking about India's mini Brazil that doesn't exist. That, where the fuck is it? Oh, here it is. Bicharpur. Let's see. I'm interested in this, to be honest. Oh yeah, it's true. Bicharpur. Awesome. I'm happy for this. Hopefully some, good football players can come out of that.
with you an event that stands out in my memory.
You met
Perhaps
Trump.
from that, you'll get
Let's see
a
what he
better
says about
understanding of the
Trump.
point I'm trying to convey. For example, we had an event in Houston. Howdy Modi. Both President Trump and I were there, and the entire stadium was completely packed. A massive crowd at an event in the US is a huge moment. While packed stadiums are common in sports, this was extraordinary for a political rally. The Indian diaspora had gathered in large numbers.
Yeah.
Both of us delivered speeches, and he sat down below listening to me speak.
Awesome.
Now that's his humility. The President of the United States sitting in the audience while I spoke from the stage, that was a remarkable gesture on his part.
And
After
what was
finishing
he
my
meant to
speech, I
do?
stepped down. And as we all know, security in the US is extremely strict and thorough. The level of scrutiny there is on a completely different
I
level.
mean, Trump almost got
I went
assassinated
over
twice.
to thank him and casually said, if you don't mind, why don't we take a lap around the stadium? There are so
Oh,
many
wow.
people here. Let's walk, wave, and greet them. In American life, it's almost impossible for the president to walk into a crowd of
Yeah.
thousands. But without even a moment's hesitation, he agreed and started walking with me. His entire security detail was thrown off guard. But for me, that moment was truly touching. It showed me that this man had courage. He makes his own decisions, but also he trusted me and my lead in that moment enough to have walked with me into the crowd.
He doesn't make his own decisions. He's the second consecutive puppet president that the United States have. He's doing stuff that he doesn't understand.
It was that sense of mutual trust, a strong bond between us that I truly witnessed on that day.
The only thing that he leads is how he wants to communicate with the electors and the public. That's all he decides. The policies and everything else, he's a puppet.
And the way I saw President Trump that day, walking into
I feel like this is also, I'll just pause it a second. I just also think that this is also one of the main differences between India and the US. The US has, in the US, the president has much less power. I feel like a lot of the things that happen in India, Modi controls them directly.
crowd of thousands without even asking security was truly amazing. And if you watch the video now, you'll be amazed. When he was shot during the recent campaign,
Yeah.
I saw the same resilient and determined President Trump, the one who walked hand in hand with me in that stadium. Even after being shot, he remained unwaveringly dedicated to America. His life was for his nation.
Yeah.
His reflection showed his America First spirit, just as I believe in nation first. I stand for India first. And that's why we connect so well. These are the things that truly resonate. And
India first.
I believe that across the world,
The only thing
politicians are
India is
covered so
first
much by
in
the media
is pollution.
that people mostly perceive each other through its lens. People rarely get the chance to truly meet or personally know one another. And perhaps third party intervention is the real cause of tensions. When I visited him in the White House for the first time,
Yeah.
there was already a lot written about President Trump in the media. At that time, he was still new to office, and the world had a rather different perception of him. Even I had been briefed in many different ways before meeting him. But to my surprise, the very moment I stepped into the White House, he broke all formal protocols right away. And then he personally took me on a tour of the White House. As he showed me around, I noticed something striking. He wasn't holding any notes or cue cards, nor was anyone accompanying him to assist. He pointed things out himself. This is where Abraham Lincoln lived, he said. He even explained why the courtroom was designed so long. He would point at the table and tell me which president
Trump is
signed here and on what date. I found that
He's a
incredibly
tourist
impressive.
guide.
It showed how much he honored the presidency
Yeah.
and how
He has to give
respectful and deeply
legitimacy to
connected
it.
he was to America's history. I could feel that.
He has to give
And he spoke to me
legitimacy
freely,
to
discussing
increase
many
his
things
power.
openly. That was my experience from our first meeting.
Yeah.
Later, when his first term ended and President Biden won,
I just feel like
4 years passed.
like this whole podcast is just marketing. Like, it's a crazy world we live in. If you make the right TikToks, you get elected president. If you make the right podcasts, people like you. It's so crazy. And then these people living in Delhi, living in Washington, they can just decide for you stuff. Like, are we gonna go to war with this country or not? I don't want to fucking go to war. All of this is marketing. There's nothing true in this podcast. Nothing is true, and also it's dubbed, so I wouldn't be surprised if actually what he's saying in this English version is actually different from the Hindi one. But this is pretty much a portrait, a speaking live portrait that just represents the leader in the ways that it wants to be represented. Like it's the modern equivalent of this kind of stuff. Whoops. It's the modern equivalent of this. This is what it is. These podcasts are exactly that.
But during that time, whenever someone we both knew met him,
And so now they're going to portray like Trump, Modi, and all of these people as awesome leaders. And the goal is that of making you believe this so that you vote for them again and they stay in power.
and this must have happened dozens of times.
I'll just watch this 10 minutes on AI simply because I don't think there's anything that I want to know more about, to be honest. I feel like politics has a extremely huge technical gap when it comes to AI. That's what politicians should be talking about. Data privacy, artificial intelligence, the economy post AI. That's stuff that I want people to talk about in these kind of settings. Because that's what's going to have ultimately the most leverage and the most impact on real life. And I don't even think that it's a coincidence that it's not talked about.
You gave a powerful speech on AI a few weeks ago at the AI summit in France. In it, you spoke about the talent pool for AI engineers in India. I think it's probably one of the biggest
There's a lot of them,
pools
yeah.
of brilliant engineers in the world. So how
Not as
can
good as China.
India become the leader in the space of AI? It currently lags behind the United States. What does it take for India to start winning and leading the world in AI?
Oh,
One thing I'm about to say might sound strong,
they need to learn
and
more.
it may
bro.
even upset
Study
some
more,
people.
study harder.
But since you've asked, I'll speak openly from my heart.
That's it.
No matter what the world does with AI, it will remain incomplete without India. I'm making this statement very responsibly. Tell me, you've heard my speech at the AI summit in Paris on global cooperation.
I don't think so.
What do you think?
Strongly disagree with him.
Can anyone develop AI entirely on their own?
Yes.
What is your perspective on this?
So you gave actually in your speech a brilliant example of the positive impact of AI and the limitations of AI. I think the example you gave is when you ask it to generate an image of a person writing with their
Left hand.
left hand, it's always going to generate a person writing with their right hand. So in that way, the West creating an AI system where India is not part of that process is always going to generate the person with the right hand. It's an essential part of what the world is historically, but especially in the 21st century.
I agree. I believe AI development is fundamentally a collaboration. Everyone involved.
Okay, so it makes sense that India has a lot of data. Like the amount of data that India has is astronomical. So maybe if he means it that way, this could be true, but the amount of data that is, I feel like it's fundamentally wrong because Google has much more data and better data. Like Google has more data than governments. I don't even feel like it's a political thing at all. There's no politics in AI. There's no borders. It's just technology. It's like an engine. Can you build an engine without India? Who cares about India? It's an engine.
Supports one another through shared experiences and learning.
Obviously, this is a strong
India isn't
thing,
just
though.
developing theoretical AI models.
India isn't developing
It is
anything at all. India isn't.
Actively working on and bringing to life AI-driven applications for very specific use cases.
Yeah, like what?
To ensure that GPU access is available to every section of society, We have already created a unique marketplace-based model to ensure its broad accessibility. A significant mindset
What
shift
does
is
that
taking
mean?
place in India. Though historical influences, traditional government procedures, or the lack of strong support infrastructure made us appear as lagging behind to others.
That's true, bro.
Take
But
5G, for example. The world initially believed we were far behind.
5G. Okay, well, I feel like this is a pre-written speech just to talk about AI to masses of people who don't know anything about AI and indoctrinate them. Because I'm pretty sure that this guy right here, he knows nothing about what he's talking about. He's just reading from a script.
But once we started, we
What does GPU democratization even mean? AI is by far led by China and the US, and that's it.
became the fastest nation globally to roll out comprehensive 5G networks. Recently, an American company executive visited me and shared his experiences about this very fact. He told me that if I were to advertise in the US for engineers, I would only receive enough applicants to fill a single room at best. But if I do the same in India, even a football field wouldn't be enough to hold them.
Yeah?
This indicates that India has access to an extraordinarily vast pool of talent, and that's our
true.
greatest strength.
That's true.
After all, artificial intelligence is fundamentally powered, shaped, and guided by human intelligence. Without genuine human intelligence, AI can't thrive or progress sustainably. And that real intelligence exists abundantly in India's youth and talent pool.
I mean, it's
Greatest asset.
But also, if you look, many of the top tech leaders, first of all, tech talent, but tech leaders in the US are of Indian origin. Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, Aravind Srivastava. You've met with some of them. What spirit of their Indian origins do you think they carry in them that enables them to be so successful?
nothing at all.
Look, Indian culture emphasizes that there should be equal respect for the place where you're born and the place where you work. There should be no difference. As much as there is dedication to the land of birth, there should be the same sense of dedication to the land of work. You should always give your best wherever you are. Because of these rich cultural values,
let's go.
every Indian strives to give their best effort, regardless of their role or position. They don't wait until they're in senior roles, even in smaller roles. Secondly, they never get involved in anything questionable or unethical. They tend to remain dedicated.
They don't. They don't. The CEOs of Microsoft and Google don't get into ethical stuff?
To what's
Okay.
right and ethical. Their nature
I'll
is
believe
collaborative.
that.
They easily get along with others, eventually for success. Just having knowledge isn't enough. The
Obviously.
ability to work effectively as part of a team matters
willingness to
significantly
lie.
more. Understanding
The willingness to lie to audiences of millions of people is another one of these huge assets.
people and harnessing their abilities is an incredibly valuable skill. Generally, people raised in India, especially those coming from joint families and brought up in an open society, find it easier to lead complex tasks and large teams effectively. That's why, today, in major corporations across the globe, you'll find Indians holding key leadership positions. And the problem solving abilities, along with the analytical thinking of Indian professionals, are truly exceptional. I believe this capability is so strong, it makes Indians globally competitive and extremely valuable on the international stage.
Yeah.
This is the reason why, in fields like innovation, entrepreneurship, startups, and boardrooms, Indians achieving extraordinary results everywhere. Take our space sector, for example. Previously, it was entirely government controlled. But just a couple of years ago, I opened it up to the private sector. And now we already have 200 startups working in space technology.
Are they
Moreover,
doing any good?
our missions like Chandrayaan are extremely cost effective. India's Chandrayaan mission cost less than what Hollywood spends making a single blockbuster film. So when the world sees how
Oh,
cost effective our
and
work
that's a
is, they naturally
blockbuster
think,
itself.
why not partner with India?
But
This
it's a,
automatically generates respect for Indian talent globally.
I think it
I
tells
believe
more about Hollywood than India. You know, Hollywood is extremely wasteful. It's crazy how much money they spend.
this is a hallmark of our civilizational ethos.
So you spoke about this human intelligence. Do you worry that AI, artificial intelligence, will replace us humans?
Nope.
It's true that in every era, a competitive atmosphere was created between technology and humanity. At times, it was even portrayed as conflict. It was often portrayed as if technology would challenge human existence itself. But every time, as technology advanced, humans adapted and stayed a step ahead. It has always been the case. After all, it is humans who find the best ways to use technology to their advantage. And I believe that with AI, humans are now being forced to reflect on what it truly means to be human. This is the
Yeah.
real power of AI. Because of the way AI functions, it has challenged how we perceive work itself. But human imagination is the fuel. AI can create many things based on that. And in the future, it may achieve even more. Still, I firmly believe that no technology can ever replace the boundless creativity and imagination of the human mind.
I agree with you. It does make me and a lot of people wonder what it makes humans special, because it seems that there's a lot that makes humans special. The imagination, the creativity, the consciousness, the ability to be afraid, to love, to dream, to think outside of the box, outside of the box of the box of the box, take risks, all of those things.
Now, look, humans have an innate ability to care for each other, the natural tendency to be concerned about one another. Now, can someone tell me, is AI capable of this?
This is one of the big open questions of the 21st century.
Oh, it kind of is. Well, okay. I think I've had enough of this. It's just indoctrination, and I don't want to be. I'm not particularly interested in this. I feel like Lex Friedman has lost a lot of credibility in the past few months. It's just like, if you want to talk about politics, that's inevitably going to happen. And I feel like I'm not so interested in politics. It's more the other way around. What the current environment feels like is that politics is interested in me, and politics is interested in all of us. And maybe it is exactly because right now with AI and a lot of technological progress, there is a strong stance to be made on whether nations should be existing at all. Like, why does Modi from his offices in New Delhi control what happens in places that are fundamentally unrelated to New Delhi? You know, I feel like the only goal of a government is that of making society function. That's it. And all of this kind of stuff is just a way to try to maintain power. And this whole podcast is a marketing stunt to make sure that people know what the Prime Minister thinks. And then they touch on topics like AI and important stuff and give vague answers and nothing useful at all. Like, he hasn't talked about how AI is going to change the world. He's not talked about what AI can do, what it cannot do. He didn't even talk about why it's a problem, why it's risky. And I feel like politicians should know that, because that's actually the greatest threat right now. Society could be extremely put in danger because of this. And I feel like, given the incompetence of our leaders right now, AI is much more of a threat if the people governing are not really competent in AI and don't know exactly what they can do and what the risks are and all of this stuff. So, you know, I read a book, it's called Sapiens. It's called Nexus. It's a book by this guy, Harari. Actually, I think I have it around here. Maybe I don't. But anyway, he talks about the fact that the people building the nuclear bombs were not the ones in control, but they were controlled by the politicians. So it's almost like every time there is this breakthrough technology, the politicians lead the technicians because they have the stories of why we're building this. And so Modi talked about, strength and unity and all of this kind of stuff, but ultimately technology is always put to the service of power. And I feel like power should be, in my opinion at least, liberating as many humans as possible from pain and slavery and injustice. But for a person that, is governing, maybe that power could be used to maintain their leadership. That's what they're doing with this podcast. But anyway, I think that we've seen enough. I know nothing about Indian politics, to be honest. This was my first time seeing Modi, and I already hate the guy.